Good evening. You're watching the news at 7:30 on ATV. I'm Edna.
And I'm Emily Sue. Here's a look at tonight's top stories.
Beijing alarms pan-Democrats by asserting its authority in policy paper on Hong Kong's autonomy.
Transport Minister justifies approving 3.9% fare rise for KMB from next month.
Jobless young man arrested after a chair thrown from rooftop kills passerby in Mongkok.
LegCo will have public attendance at Friday's Finance Committee meeting, and security staff will turn away those who are deemed likely to disrupt the proceedings.
The contingency measures are to avoid a repeat of last Friday's chaos when protesters forced their way into the building. ATV's Winner Wong reports.
Special contingency measures will be in place at Friday's Finance Committee meeting to prevent a repeat of last week's chaos when angry protesters stormed the LegCo building. Several security guards were injured in the scuffles as about 100 demonstrators opposing the development of the northeastern New Territories tried to gatecrash the session. The LegCo Commission reviewed security tapes this morning before the president of the legislature, Zhang Yuxing, outlined the action that will be taken on Friday. Public guided tours in the afternoon will be cancelled, and people will not be allowed into the LegCo library. Public attendance at the Finance Committee meeting will be lowered from 40 to 20 people, and security staff will have the right to deny entry to anyone they deem a threat.
Because we have limited the number of people present in the public gallery, and because we have taken steps to make sure that those who have caused problems before will not be admitted. So we have a much lower risk. There is a much better safety margin.
The measures will be temporary as Zhang is reluctant to restrict public access to LegCo, even though his own party members are calling for tough action. Before meeting his cabinet this morning, the chief executive warned people against staging illegal or violent protests. He said while Hong Kong guarantees freedom of speech, it will not tolerate violence whether it's at LegCo or government headquarters in Tamar. Winner Wong, ATV News.
Beijing has for the first time issued a white paper setting out its policies on Hong Kong's autonomy and reminding people here that the central government is the ultimate authority.
The paper warns that Hong Kong is full of wrong views about the one country, two systems policy, and some people are colluding with outside forces to interfere in the system. It guarantees there will be universal suffrage, but lays out the conditions for it, including the requirement for Hong Kong's leader to be a patriot.
The white paper released today by the State Council Information Office in Beijing reads like a policy statement on Hong Kong, with the focus on the one country, two systems principle and democratic reform. But while it reassures the SAR of Beijing's full support, it also comes with warnings against rocking the boat, while making it clear that the central government is firmly in charge and has the final say. The high degree of autonomy of the Hong Kong SAR is not an inherent power, but one that comes solely from the authorization by the central leadership, the paper states. The high degree of autonomy of the Hong Kong SAR is not full autonomy, nor a decentralized power. There is no such thing called residual power. The paper goes on to point out that some people are confused or lopsided in their understanding of the one country, two systems policy and the Basic Law. Many wrong views that are currently rife in Hong Kong concerning its economy, society and development of its political structure are attributable to this. It calls for Hong Kong to enhance its competitiveness in the face of profound adjustments and changes in the economic environment both within and outside the region. Some deep-seated problems that have built up over a long period of time are becoming more conspicuous and need to be solved by pooling the efforts of all sectors, the paper cautions. It calls for the concerns of the people to be properly addressed through better coordination and communication between the SAR and the mainland. Then, without naming anyone, it goes on to warn. it is necessary to stay alert to the attempt of outside forces to use Hong Kong to interfere in China's domestic affairs, and prevent and repel the attempt made by a very small number of people who act in collusion with outside forces to interfere with the implementation of one country, two systems in Hong Kong. The paper guarantees that the goal of electing the chief executive and the legislative council by universal suffrage will be achieved. But it stresses the role of a broadly representative nominating committee in naming candidates and the need for all sectors of society to build a consensus. Also spelled out very clearly is Beijing's requirement that the chief executive must be a person who loves the country and Hong Kong. Loving the country is the basic political requirement for Hong Kong's administrators, the paper declares. If they are not consisted of patriots as the mainstay, or they cannot be loyal to the country and the Hong Kong SAR, the practice of one country, two systems in the Hong Kong SAR will deviate from its right direction, making it difficult to uphold the country's sovereignty, security and development interests, and putting Hong Kong's stability and prosperity and the well-being of its people in serious jeopardy. The paper also addresses the problem of conflicting interpretations of Hong Kong's mini-constitution. It stresses that all provisions of the Basic Law are interrelated and should be taken as a whole. Stressing one aspect while ignoring others will lead to ambiguity or contentious interpretation, it warns.
Beijing's white paper is causing alarm among the pan-democrats who see it as interference in Hong Kong affairs and a violation of the Basic Law.
They're also calling it a scare tactic to keep people away from a referendum on universal suffrage next week, organized by the Occupy Central movement. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying welcomed Beijing's white paper on Hong Kong, although it took him all day to respond to it after its release this morning. He defended the central government's assertion of its authority over the SAR, insisting that it did not override the Basic Law and was accepted in Hong Kong and overseas.
High degree of autonomy does not mean complete autonomy on the part of Hong Kong. So there's a high degree of autonomy as stipulated in the Basic Law, and it has been in the Basic Law since it was promulgated in 1990.
Both his remarks and the controversial points raised in the white paper drew sharp criticism from the pan-democratic camp. Civic Party leader Alan Leong accused Beijing of going back on its word, as the Basic Law clearly states that the central government cannot interfere in the SAR's internal affairs.
Hong Kong and the international community will not play dumb. We would hold you to your words. Please respect what you have promised, Hong Kong.
Leong and the other pan-democrats are also suspicious of the timing. The paper has been released just 10 days before a de facto referendum on universal suffrage organized by the Occupy Central movement. Between the 20th and the 22nd of this month, organizers expect 100,000 people to vote on a short list of 3 political reform proposals which call for some form of civil nomination to let ordinary voters choose candidates running for chief executive in 2017. The idea has been strongly opposed by both Beijing and SAR government officials, who insist that only the official nominating committee has the power to name candidates. The Civic Party leader labeled the white paper as the central government's latest tactic to scare people away from voting in the referendum.
They fear that the result of that voting would produce a result that would embarrass them.
So why should the central government and the SAR government give people the impression that they are very nervous, very frightened, and it seems that they want to use many means to maybe threaten or push the Hong Kong people into not voting? I don't see any reason for that at all.
The Labour Party's Lee Cheuk-yen condemned the white paper as proof that Beijing is suppressing Hong Kong's desire for genuine universal suffrage. He described the current situation as a war between what the people want and what Beijing has in store for them. Benny Tai, leader of the Occupy Central movement, accused Beijing of targeting the referendum. But he expressed confidence that it would only encourage more people to come out and support the city's democratic movement.
成功落實
The chief executive brushed aside their allegations. He said the central government began drafting the white paper, which was translated into 7 languages more than a year ago. Leung insisted Beijing would not release such an extensive report in response to developments within just 2 months in Hong Kong. Mainland Academic and Basic Law Committee member Rao Ge-ping echoed Leung. Rao said Occupy Central organizers had not finalized the date of the referendum until recently, long after Beijing began writing the report. Pro-establishment lawmakers agreed and accused their colleagues from the opposition camp of overreacting. DAB leader 10June2014 called the report a timely reminder.
I think it is important because right now, some people, some organizations, they rejected the basic law. And also they breached the basic law.
The issue will be hotly debated in the weeks to come when the government invites Beijing officials to discuss the white paper with the community. Commuters will have to dig deeper into their pockets as KMB will be raising bus fares by 3.9% next month.
The bus operator claims nearly 90% of passengers will not have to pay more than 40 cents extra for a trip. It's a done deal. Fares charged by Hong Kong's biggest franchised bus operator will go up by 3.9% from the 6th of July. The increase, approved by the Executive Council today, is smaller than the 4.3% that KMB had applied for. But that's small comfort to commuters who will have to put up with KMB's second fare rise in 16 months. In March last year, fares went up by 4.9%. The company says 86% of passengers will pay up to 40 cents more per trip. The remaining commuters will have to fork out an extra 50 cents to $1 a trip. Racing fans will have to pay an extra $1 for rides to the racecourses in Sha Tin and Happy Valley. In justifying the fare rise, the Transport Minister said the government had considered a basket of factors under the fare adjustment mechanism.
Well, we think that the increased rate of 3.9% should be, by and large, affordable because this figure is lower than the various benchmarks that we are employing to enable us to come to a reasonable fare increase. On the one hand, we have to make sure that the fare increase is reasonable, affordable by the general public as passengers. On the other hand, we have to ensure that the bus company has got sufficient financial sustainability in order to maintain existing services, to improve services, as well as to make the necessary investment in hardware.
The government notes that KMB has lost money in the past 2 years, $43 million in 2012 and $12.4 million last year. The firm has also cited inflation and rising operational costs to justify the hike.
We are not encouraging bus companies just to ask for fare increase. So when we look at the actual application, we have to make sure that the company has strived to manage itself properly.
The transport chief added that the bus company will continue with efforts to reduce routes that are underused and redeploy resources to lessen the pressure to raise fares. But that's not good enough for critics like Neo-Democrat lawmaker Gary Fan.
That will make a better situation for the KMB profit, to make a better profit, to cut the loss, and to reduce the deficit. I think the KMB should wait until they finish several other districts to finish the so-called the bus line reallocation before they apply for a fare raise.
KMB's new round of fares increases will come a week after MTR fares go up by 3.6%. The police have arrested a jobless young man accused of hurling a chair down from a rooftop in Mong Kok and killing a man who was hit on the head.
The incident happened at around 1 a.m. when the usually busy area was mostly deserted. ATV's Arthur Urquiola reports.
The 22-year-old suspect was handcuffed and hooded as he was taken away by police from a 6-story building on Sai Ying Choi Street. He was caught on the rooftop drinking alcohol. He's accused of hurling an office chair down from the roof and across the street. where it hit a 29-year-old man on the head as he was walking past with friends. Police were called when the victim was found lying unconscious on the street at around 1 a.m., when the area was mostly deserted. The street is one of the busiest in Mongkok and packed with shoppers during business hours. The victim was rushed to Kwonghwa Hospital, but it was too late, and he was certified dead soon afterwards. A search of the 6-story building across the street led to the arrest of the suspect on the rooftop. He admitted to police at the scene that he had thrown the chair from the roof of the building where he lives. He was said to be unemployed and had a history of mental illness. Sayang Choi was the scene of several incidents in 2008 and 2009, when acid was dropped from building tops on passers-by below. Arthur Urquiola, ATV News.
Still to come on ATV's main news tonight. High Court hears more corruption allegations against Raphael Hui and Kwok brothers as prosecution ends opening submission.
Government approves bigger pay rise for higher paid civil servants than colleagues in lower bands.
Mr. Asia Craze, rocking the world. ATV Mr. Asia Contest 2014 is now open for application. Mr. Asia Craze, rocking the world. ATV Mr. Asia Contest 2014. Application form is available at ATV website and the following locations. Challenge humans' limits, even beyond those. Endure pain and strains. Conquer dangers and fears. Limits could be unlimited. You do just have to be a little bit crazy. Leisure time. Chasing the Rush. Tuesday night at 8:30. Explore different magnificent places. This world is far more than you can imagine. We open a window to let you see how extraordinary they are. Window on. Thursday night at 8:30.
The selection of the chief executive by universal suffrage in 2017 will be a milestone in Hong Kong's constitutional development.
According to Article 45 of the Basic Law, a broadly representative nominating committee will nominate candidates. Then all voters will elect the chief executive through one person, one vote. Finally, there is appointment by the Central People's Government.
Following these steps, we can all elect our chief executive in 2017.
Be cool. Keep updated with the international music scene. Warner Music Power Station, Thursday night at 10. Want to promote your latest products on television? ATV's 2014 Ad Easy package is the right choice for you. Our promotion reaches as far as the Pearl River Delta region and southern China, and our price starts at just $68,000. Call 2992-8890 or our mainland hotline now.
Prosecutors have ended their opening submission in the corruption trial against former Chief Secretary Raphael Hui and the Kwok brothers of Sun Hung Kai.
Today, they argue that more than $4 million paid to Hui as a bonus at the end of his consultancy for the developer was to have him as an inside man in the government. Arthur Urquiola reports.
Prosecutor David Perry wrapped up his opening speech today in the graft trial against the tycoon brothers of Sun Hung Kai Properties and the city's former No. 2 official. He said after former Chief Secretary Raphael Hui took office, he was involved in negotiations with Sun Hung Kai in 2006 over the development of Ma Wan. During negotiations, Hui had even sat with the developer's co-chairman, Thomas Kwok, to discuss traffic arrangements. Perry then pointed out Hui did not declare any conflict of interest when he headed the steering committee on the development of the West Kowloon Cultural District. Hui had claimed back then that he had never advised the developer on matters related to the project, even while he was a consultant to Sun Hung Kai before that.
but the court heard that while he appeared impartial and independent, Hui was receiving millions as a government insider planted by the developer. Today's submissions earlier focused on a payment of more than $4 million to Hui in April 2005 as a bonus for consultancy services. Defendant Raymond Kwok had told the ICAC he received a notice from Hui requesting the payment and found it odd but agreed to pay it anyway. He claimed this was to ensure the company did not come across as miserly and ungrateful, as Hui was a family friend. However, Perry argued that Hui had already been provided with free accommodation and office space, and the money was actually a sweetener for the man who would soon take up a top position in government. With the opening submissions finished, prosecutors are now set to present evidence and summon more than 60 witnesses. Radical lawmaker Leung Kwok-hong has lost his bid to appeal to the city's highest court against a one-month jail term. The sentence was imposed by the High Court yesterday after it rejected his appeal against convictions earlier for rowdy protests in 2011. The lawmaker was convicted on 3 counts of criminal damage and breaching the peace. But a count of disorderly behavior was quashed and his 2-month sentence was halved. Leung was sent to prison immediately, but will not lose his LegCo seat because his sentence is not more than a month.
Civil servants are to get pay rises backdated to April, ranging from 4.7% to 5.9%, with those who earn higher salaries getting bigger increases.
The pay rises are seen as generous compared with the private sector, but staff unions want more. Here's Wenna Wong.
Hong Kong's 160,000 civil servants are being given a pay rise for this financial year, backdated to April. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying and his cabinet endorsed the increase today, deciding that those earning more will get a bigger rise. Civil servants in the lower and middle salary bands will receive an increase of 4.71%, while their colleagues in the upper bracket and directorate level will earn 5.96% more. The government said the pay rise was decided after considering salary trends, the economic situation, inflation, and staff morale. While the offer is generous compared with the private sector, where pay levels are still frozen for many workers, some civil service unions are complaining that it's too low. The Junior Police Officers Association, which had demanded a rise of at least 5.2%, expressed its dissatisfaction. Pay increases for law enforcement officers should correspond with the Consumer Price Index and not with market references, said Association head Joe Chan. The unions will discuss the pay offer and their response will be considered by the chief executive before a final decision is made. Winna Wong, ATV News.
Inflation on the mainland has risen to a 4-month high, mainly on the back of higher food prices.
Despite the increase, the Consumer Price Index is still below the target for the entire year. Here's Arthur Urkeola.
Mainland families had to dig deeper into their pockets last month to pay for their meals after food prices surged 4.1% from May last year. More expensive foods sent the inflation rate up to a 4-month high. The Consumer Price Index rose to 2.5% last month, compared with 1.8% in April. Fresh fruits were the main culprit, jumping by 20%, making food in May twice as expensive as in the previous month. The good news for consumers was that pork, a staple of the Chinese diet, fell slightly last month. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the higher CPI in May was also caused by the carryover effect, because last year's base for comparison was low. Despite the rise, the inflation rate is still below the full-year target of 3.5%, giving policymakers options to tweak the system to maintain economic growth. There have been mixed signals from the world's second biggest economy following the release of other recent statistics. A drop in imports last month suggested waning domestic demand, but exports surged 7%, indicating a pickup in economic activity among China's main trade partners, who are still trying to recover from a recession. Gross domestic product between January and March was 7.4%, the weakest in 6 quarters. Beijing hopes that GDP for the full year will be 7.5%. This has prompted the authorities to loosen the reserve ratio for some banks and lenders. The 0.5% cut from Monday will enable small businesses in urban and rural areas to continue investing and producing. This will contribute to stable employment and a sustainable economy at a time of uncertainty on the mainland and globally. Arthur Akiola, ATV News.
Now time for sports with Raymond Young. So more World Cup finalists have reached Brazil.
Well, that's right, and some have interrupted training for sightseeing. However, England's younger players gave the famous beaches of Rio de Janeiro a miss and visited a slum instead as part of a charm offensive. Pressure is mounting on hot favourites Brazil ahead of the home side's clash with Croatia in the World Cup opener on Thursday. But confidence is high, with Dani Alves saying he hopes to meet arch-rivals Argentina in the final. Defending champions Spain also made their final preparations before taking on Holland on Friday. All eyes will be on Brazilian-born striker Diego Costa, who can expect to be jeered by some in the crowd when he puts on a Spanish jersey. England took part in drills at a scenic military base in Rio de Janeiro. A lackluster stalemate against Honduras last weekend raised doubts about England's readiness to face Italy on Saturday. There's speculation that Wayne Rooney may make way for younger strikers, but a former teammate defended the English star.
Wayne proves himself every time that he steps onto a football field. You know, at the end of the day, Man United might not have had a great season, but he had a good season. You know, he performed well in almost every game, and every time that he puts an England shirt on, you know it means something.
Rio boasts some of the best beaches in Brazil, but England's younger players were not interested. Instead, they visited a favela in an outreach session with locals. The young guns, including Manchester United's Danny Welbeck and his Liverpool counterpart Daniel Sturridge, joined in the capoeira dance, a form of martial art incorporating singing and acrobatic moves.
It's great, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, the most important thing is the football, that's why we're here, but if we can get out and help some kids and see different parts of Brazil, you know, we're happy to do that.
As more football fans fly into Brazil, others have opted for the scenic route. 3 men from Britain set foot in the host nation after a 2,000-kilometer trek across Latin America over the past 3 months.
We got lost in rural Argentina, and it was thundering and lightning, storming, it was getting dark, and in the end we had to walk back. We had to walk along a live train line to the main road, and luckily we managed to flag down a car and he took us on. Oh, amazing life experiences, stories that I'll tell my grandchildren when I'm old and grey.
And even before the final whistle in Brazil, the adventurous trio are planning to trek across Europe for Russia 2018. And finally, in sports, lucky students at a Shatin College had a chance to meet NBA star Kyrie Irving today. The Cleveland Cavaliers point guard showed why he's the top rising star with his athleticism on the court. He also took part in a coaching session with the school's basketball team before training with local professional players. Irving is on a promotional tour with a sportswear brand and will next visit Guangzhou. And a look at the weather before we go. Hong Kong woke up to a cloudy morning, but there were sunny intervals in the afternoon. Temperatures range from 27 to 30.7 degrees, while the relative humidity was between 69 and 87%. Winds were moderate to fresh coming in from the east. Let's check on the ultraviolet reading. The maximum recorded for the day was 9. Tomorrow's UV index will be around 7. Now for a look at the weather in the region. A fresh airstream from the east is affecting the coast of Guangdong. And now the satellite images. A broad monsoon trough is bringing unsettled weather to the northern part of the South China Sea. Here's what we can expect over the next few days. Remaining cloudy with a few showers tomorrow. Temperatures will range from 27 to 31 degrees. Expect brighter skies on Thursday and over the weekend, but there will be 1 or 2 showers too. Here are the latest pollution readings under the Air Quality Health Index. General stations are at 5 to 6, meaning the health risk is moderate. Roadside levels are at 6. Finally, here's the weather around the world.
headlines for Tuesday night. We'll have an update in 1 hour. I'm Edna.
I'm Raymond Yang.
And I'm Emily Sue. Thank you for watching ATV. Good night.
Good night.
Coming up, check in current news, European Journal. ATV World Channel makes this summer even hotter. All travelling information and popular dramas are just on World Channel. We open a window.